or in counties that have a population of in excess of 700,000, that the money would be used for emergency ambulance service and nothing else. It further provides that if a city agrees to provide emergency ambulance service, as some cities do, and Richardson does and has done for some time, then the portion of the taxes collected from those residents of the city will be turned over to the city by the county, so that it leaves within the discretion of the city.
The city of Richardson, one of the cities you represent, was also one of the cities that objected to the original ordinance. What was wrong with it?
Well, the objection was that as the bill was originally written, there was no assurance that the money that was collected would be used for emergency ambulance service. The law was written in such a way that provided the money could be used for emergency ambulance service as well as for other road activities, acquisition right-of-way and maintenance of roads. And Richardson felt like that if they were going to levy a tax for ambulance service, it ought to be earmarked for that purpose and not anything else.
One week ago tonight, a 26-year-old Aleta, Texas woman, Jimmy Sue Bannister, was found dead here in Mary's Creek bottom. Foul play was suspected from the beginning. As a matter of fact, the Tarrant County Medical Examiner ruled homicide pending further investigation following an autopsy. However, the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office today revealed that their investigation may prove that the girl died accidentally as a result of a horse that was too stubborn to cross a creek. Sheriff Lon Evans told me what the week-long investigation revealed today.
The thing that we came up on this horse, we found out she's fond of riding horses. We talked to a man who had permitted her to do some riding out there in the same area on his horses, and that he had cautioned her only shortly before this not to try to go down through this creek bed with this certain horse, that he might throw her. So actually, we think this is what happened. Actually, we have found horsehair on her clothing. She was not sexually molested. We found her purse. We found her glasses. Her money was intact. Robbery wasn't the motive. She had a broken neck and a badly bruised side of her face, which is she was found in a very rocky area of a creek bed where she had crawled some distance, we think, to try to get to water.
Tarrant County Medical Examiner Dr. Felix Quotes said today he has not changed his ruling in the death until he has seen a full report of the Sheriff's Department's investigation.
At this moment, this of course does not change the medical cause of death, which still remains, of course, a broken neck and a fracture of the larynx, and, of course, evidence of multiple external bruises and injuries. At this moment, the ruling was, of course, a homicide pending further investigation, and, of course, then I expect that we will be able to complete all this beginning the next week.
The final decision of homicide or accidental death will rest with Dr. Gwotes. Captain George Adams, the chief investigator in the case, says no motive for homicide has been found, that Jimmy Sue Bannister had no enemies. Whether she was killed by an unknown person or did actually fall victim to a stubborn horse, the fact remains Jimmy Sue Bannister is dead, in a very unusual case in which the circumstances leading to her death may never be known. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
All right, to prevent future leaks of information, we have recently established new procedures within our records-keeping areas that we feel will guard against the sort of thing that caused us to be here in this interview right now, this situation where the employee of the report section released unauthorized information.
How widespread is the release of unauthorized information? Or do you really know at this time?
No, I don't really know.
Charred, burned, and black grass. Yesterday, this area, bustling with firemen as they battled a stubborn grass fire whipped by the abnormally high winds we've been having this year. This was one of just about 30 grass fires in Fort Worth yesterday. That's just about average. This means that in a normal month, firemen will fight close to 1,000 grass fires. Speaking of normal, rain for this area is about 4 to 5 inches below normal, what it should be. Officials say the bad weather and the dry weather can now be classified as a severe drought. Today really hasn't been as bad as the past several days. For some reason, the humidity is a little bit higher, and the firefighters say that when this happens, the number of grass fires is lower. So far, only a half a dozen times today have the fire trucks been rolling. No major damage from any of the grass fires this year has been reported, but the ever-present danger that wind-whipped flames from a small grass fire could ignite a house or several houses is ever present. The only item that will ease the pressure of a grass fire is rain. And for many days now, Fort Worth residents and firefighters alike have looked to the skies, hoping and praying for the needed moisture. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
This is grossly unfair, but we are trying to comply with a federal court decision that is very difficult in interpretation. They say that a man has to be permitted to run for office, regardless of his financial circumstances, or even if he has a reasonable, no great reasonable chance of winning. The inequity, of course, is that it requires perhaps an opponent to subsidize his opponent's campaign.
Suppose you have a man in the middle classes, one who couldn't afford the $5,000 proposed filing fee for a district judge, but one who couldn't sign a pauper's waiver either. What does this man do?
The proposal says any or all of the filing fee, and the determination will then be made by it would end up, I'm sure, before the district judge, and he would make the determination of what a man could afford to pay.
Well, yes, I thought our Hudson, Gordon, and Danny Ladbo line has tailed off at the latter part of the season in first series with Fort Worth, and last night I sat Hudson out because I felt he was a little tired, fatigued, and he didn't have the same zip. He was getting pushed off the puck, and I inserted J.P. LeBlanc, and he made a little bit of difference because LeBlanc, as you know, has been injured, and he's a little fresher and a little stronger than Hudson. And Dave will bounce back, and he's a 100%er.
And what about your defense, Bobby?
Our defense is I have a lot of admiration for them. They've played exceptionally well. They've made mistakes, but they've played very well, as Jimmy Shaw did last night.
Would you say that you almost have to have this win Saturday night to go into Omaha with a chance of winning the Cup?
Well, I think so. I think it's a very important game for us. It gives us a one-game edge going into their building, and I think we can win one of the two. If we do, we'd be in fine shape. But it's a very important game when you can only play them a period at a time and a game at a time.
To people of the Jewish faith, Passover is one of the holiest of days, possibly symbolically the most important in the Jewish faith. And Passover includes the Seder feast, which is rich in symbols. I asked Rabbi Gerald Klein of Temple Emmanuel here in North Dallas to explain some of the symbols of the Seder.
We would be here a long time, as we will be tonight. You're in the Tobian Auditorium of Temple Emmanuel, and we're getting ready for our congregational Seder. A Seder, the ceremonial meal that begins the Passover. The Seder is observed mostly in Jewish homes. We have a temple Seder for those people who, for one reason or another, cannot have a home Seder. And the Seder has so many symbols that there's a special little book that we call the Haggadah. That really is a how-to-do-it book that tells us to begin and light the candles and lift the cup of wine and thank God for all of his bounty, and then specific Passover symbols, the most important of which is the matzah, or the unleavened bread. Indeed, this holiday is called Chag HaMatzos, the festival of the unleavened bread.
the public service officers which we're going to put on the street shortly will replace the police officer directing traffic at the intersections, and they will replace the police officers who now ride three-wheel motorcycles and enforce parking regulations.
What kind of authority will they have?
They will direct traffic, and they will have the authority to write parking tickets, but they will not have any authority to write tickets for moving traffic violations, nor can they make an arrest, and they will not be armed.
Well, I've met lots of people since I've been here in the last 21 years, and I've got good feelings toward them. They're real fine people.
Do you think you're going to miss standing on this corner and watching the cars?
I'll miss it to a certain extent, yes. I sure will.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been a long 21 years, I'm sure, for Officer Finnegan, but it's just about over. A public service officer will soon take his place at the corner of Main and Irving. He says he's been bitten, kicked, but never hit by a car. His successor hopes to be as fortunate. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News, on the move.
Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The terrible deed is done. The cross is secured, and Jesus Christ has been nailed to that cross.
They divided his clothes among themselves by 4 dimes. And the people stood there watching while the Jewish leaders made fun of him. He saved others, let him save himself. If he is the Messiah, then God has chosen. Then the soldiers also made fun of him. They came up to him and offered him wine and said, Save yourself if you are the king of the Jews. And these words were written above him. This is the king of the Jews.
The 3-hour service here at the First United Methodist Church in Richardson is, of course, only one of many services at virtually every church and synagogue in the Dallas area over the Passover Easter season. Bill Reynolds, Channel 8 News in Richardson.
During the past few days, Lieutenant Governor Barnes has stated that we need a $550 million increase, but that is only with 1 year welfare, not 2 years welfare. If we're going to take care of the entire biennium, we do need somewhere between $750 million to $800 million tax increase. I think that we can do it by raising the sales tax, and it does need to be raised so that the consumers will be carrying their fair share, and also by instituting in Texas. Texas is one of the few states that does not have a corporate income tax, that is, an excess profits tax. And if we have this excess corporate profits tax, it will raise the necessary funds that we need. But if we're actually
if I could only control myself.
That's all right.
No home should be without a flag.
Well, basically because of the basic philosophy expressed by both candidates and because of the qualifications and the maturity of Mr. Mays.
In your statement, you mentioned glamour in the job. Do you feel Wes Wise is after the job for the glamour of being mayor?
I said in the statement that we must go beyond the glamour of the ceremonial duties assigned by the mayor and look to all the decisions, and especially the decisions that relate to the overall well-being of the city.
Did you vote for Avery Mays in the general?
No, I voted for Wes Wise in the general election as a protest vote to the CCA for what had happened to me and to many other people.
Are you prepared now to endorse the CCA?
I am not endorsing in any way the CCA now or in the future.
We're having it with the expectation of hiring the very best persons possible in the field of law enforcement.
I understand this is the first time you've had a psychiatrist interview. What is the purpose of this?
This is a recommended procedure. It is not mandatory, but it is recommended, and we feel that it's the recommendation is well taken, that he can probably tell us some things that we could later expect from the officers.
Well, for the main reason, I've been interested in law enforcement. Laws, you have to have the laws to establish a smooth running society. Being my first board, I actually wouldn't know what to say about it, except that it's pretty much what I expect it to be.
Would you be real happy if you became a deputy?
Very happy.
An unusual annexation dispute between the cities of Hearst and Colleyville in northeast Tarrant County appears to be over, at least temporarily. The Texas Supreme Court this week ruled that Hearst could not annex the property in dispute. The controversy is now in the 17th District Court for judicial apportionment of the land. Some unusual circumstances have arisen at points where the city limits of Hearst and Colleyville have met. On the other side of this post is Colleyville. Right now I'm standing in Hearst. Mr. Don Schwartz has lived in this area for 10 years in this house, and 5 of those years, half of the time, he has lived in 2 different cities.
We sleep in the city of Colleyville, and we eat in Hearst.
Because the line, where does the line go through your house?
Right, cuts our kitchen right half in 2.
Has this presented any major problems for you? Or?
No, none, except when they have a fire. The fire started in Hearst here, and then run over to Colleyville, and then jumped the fence and got over in Keller. It was quite odd. The fire department didn't know where they were at.
Which city do you prefer to be in?
Colleyville.
This morning, the Colleyville City Council voted to hold a public hearing April 21st before annexing the people in this area who have petitioned to come into Colleyville fully. The main advantage to the residents would be that Colleyville currently has no property taxes, while Hearst city taxes are among the highest in the county. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Colleyville.
Hi. In this country, bicycles have long been considered the transitional form of locomotion for kids between Ankle Express and Dad's car. But perhaps thanks to famed heart specialist Dr. Paul Dudley White's recommendation that the adult population ride bicycles, bicycle riding is rapidly becoming the fastest growing pastime for adults in the country. Almost everyone is getting into the kick of riding bikes. Not too long ago, I bought 3 brand new bikes for my family. My daughter already had one. And this bike that I'm on belongs to my wife. It's the only one we have left. Because along with the increase in riding bicycles that we've had in this country, there's been an increase of bicycle thefts. We became curious about the number of bicycles that were stolen each year in Dallas, and about the record of recovery that the Dallas Police Department was experiencing. So I traveled down to 606 South Good Latimer Expressway to the Automobile Pound, where recovered bicycles are stored by police until they're either reclaimed by the owners or they're sold at auction. And there I caught up with Detective K.C. Richardson, a 15-year veteran of the Auto Theft Bureau who's in charge of stolen bicycles. Detective Richardson, how many bicycles are stolen each year in Dallas?
Approximately 3,800.
And what's the total value of the thefts?
Figuring them at a value of $50 apiece, it would be around $190,000.
The police department cost estimates are based on the pawn shop value of the bike and not on the cost of replacement. I spoke to Gerald Howell of Bicycles Unlimited about replacement costs and bicycle thefts.
I know that a bicycle, probably people say it's a little amount according to the other things that go on. But nowadays, most people that have bicycles stole are over $100 with tax. And as many of them that are being stolen and not found, it's not little anymore. It's a big item. And you just don't go out and buy a new bike 2 or 3 times a year because it's stolen and never found.
How did you feel when you came back and saw your bikes missing?
Well, just kind of surprised and not real happy about it.
you know, because I had so much fun with that bike.
You miss it?
Yes.
What are you going to do now?
Well, I hope I can get another bike, a second hand.
How are you going to keep it from being stolen?
Well, I think that's one thing that's taught me a lesson, to always lock my bike. It's a hard way to learn, but it's the way to learn it.
But is a lock enough to keep a bicycle from being stolen? Tomorrow we'll examine that question, and we'll speculate on who might be taking nearly 4,000 bicycles a year from the homes and the streets and the school grounds of Dallas.